Right. Welcome to the Leadership is Female podcast. Laura Barnard. She is the founder of BREAKTHRU Brands, leadership and branding expert. We are so excited to have you today, and I would love if you would introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you, Emily. It's great to see you this morning. We were just commiserating on our common hatred of laundry and the earbuds that fall out of our ears. So we have a lot in common, but I'm excited to have this conversation with you today, and want to just say grateful for Laura Dixon for connecting us in the first place in this network that we have. And I'm excited to collaborate with you in many ways going forward. But for today, introductions, let's talk about BREAKTHRU Brands. So I am the founder of BREAKTHRU Brands. We are a leadership branding agency. We started in 2019. Prior to that, I'd spent about 15 years in the consumer packaged good industry in brand management and marketing. So kind of grew up in that business. And prior to that, I was a psychology major and a basketball player at Harvard University. And that's really where a lot of the seeds were planted in terms of the leadership philosophies that we bring to life and our team approach to collaborating with women leaders.
Yeah, and speaking of things in common, we're both Chicagoans too.
Yes.
I'm now a West Coaster, but you're back there. So listeners, I'm sure you're going to hear us just really going at it with these accents.
Yes, I'm going to go deep for my most Chicago-y accent for you all. So we lived on the East Coast a little bit, about 4 years, and it almost got, drawn out of me. But it's now that we're back, it's rearing its head. So
yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, let's talk about Harvard for a minute, because we can't skip over that incredible accomplishment. You were an athlete, and then you went on to get your MBA at the University of Chicago. How did this prestigious education help shape you as the leader you are today?
Yeah, so it was now decades ago. So I look back to it was almost the last century, which is someone joked about that I was there that long ago. And I think about the opportunity to go to Harvard. The quick backstory. I come from a family where my mom did not go to college. No women in her family had the opportunity to go to college. My own family, my dad kind of put himself through night school and did a 4-year degree in about 2 years as a very young man. My brothers, one went to college, one didn't go to college. So kind of a mixed bag in terms of higher education. And I had set out pretty early on that I knew I wanted to play sports in college. I was a really avid athlete in soccer and basketball and pretty much any sport. But I also really had high academic standards for myself. And I wanted to find that perfect match of both those things, high academics, high athletics, and was, right place, right time with being recruited by the Ivy League, some of the teams there, and had the opportunity to fly out to Cambridge and meet the coach at Harvard basketball, now retired, but Kathy Delaney-Smith. And I knew at that moment, being on campus there, meeting the coach, meeting some of the players, that was really the culture that I wanted to be in, the place I wanted to be. And I knew I was going to learn a lot from a wide range of folks there. So it was a really, amazing opportunity for a kid like me growing up, western suburbs of Chicago, and to really fall into that place. I found a home there, and I really developed my love of learning, my love of team sports, and my love of leadership.
Yeah. And then, post university, post grad school, you began your career in marketing, working for iconic brands like Haribo, which is a favorite in our house.
Yes.
Werther's.
Talked about that, right? Yeah. Sorry about that.
Currently there's a couple of bags of those downstairs, considering we're recording on Valentine's Day.
Safekeeping, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So Werther's and Skittles as well. Yeah. These are iconic marketing brands. What were the fundamentals that you developed and discovered when working on these brands?
Yeah. So I look back, a lot of these brands are so bad for your teeth, but they're very delicious and enjoyable. But I look back to the experiences I had with Wrigley Mars as a great, large CPG company, and CPG is consumer packaged goods, for those of you out there who may not know. But I looked at that CPG category as a place early on to learn about what brand management was, what marketing was. I had really no experience prior to my internship with Mars Wrigley in between that first and second year of business school in terms of what what is this whole profession? And it really, at Mars, Wrigley, and then onto my roles at Haribo and others, it really is all about consumer insights and understanding who you're serving, what makes you unique, what makes you different, and how you deliver in a way that's most relevant to that consumer. So there's the 4 Ps of marketing and the 3 Cs and all these theories and philosophies and frameworks that I was taught and I read about and I studied. But at the end of the day, it's marketing and branding is all about knowing your consumer. And I look at these big companies that have launched these iconic, global brands that are beloved, and they really have a handle on who their consumer is, how to be relevant with them, how to reach them with products, with communication, with these touch points that make them really a part of their lives.
Yeah. And you mentioned another lesson that you learned while working for 2 decades in the marketing industry is the value of the team and the individual teammates. Tell us more about this lesson and why it's one that really stands out in your career.
Yeah. Well, early on, in those early Mars Wrigley days and being, the idea of being a brand manager, you think it's one person running a brand, and really the role of a brand manager was often described as almost like the hub of a wheel, where you're almost a general manager of that business, and your hub has spokes often to different functions of the business. So imagine finance, consumer insights, supply chain, packaging, the factory, all these different folks where you're not their boss per se by title, but you're responsible for that brand and that business, and you are at the helm, almost the quarterback of that team, and those cross-functional teams that come into place at these large companies. That's how the businesses are run. And I learned early on, one person is, yes, it was my responsibility wearing that hat as a brand manager, but you're part of a team and you have to know who's on your team, what they can bring to the table, how you have to work together. And someone has to be kind of leading that process through the annual planning cycles and the execution, making sure that you're delivering on what you say you're going to do. And I learned very early on to know, quick assessment, strengths, weaknesses, who can do what am I uniquely good at? What is this person next to me uniquely good at? And putting those puzzle pieces together to create the whole. And that team mentality, that one person can't do it alone, really stuck with me. And we take that same team approach, that collaborative approach, into our work today as we help build the leadership brands of women.
Yeah, well, there's so many synergies throughout your career, starting back, I don't know, it was pre-college, because that athlete mentality of teamwork and understanding your individual teammates, you're carrying that through today. The work that you put into iconic brands and understanding consumer insights is so relevant today in your work in Breakthrough Brands and talking about individual branding. So Breakthrough Brands. All right, we gotta geek out on this.
Let's break it down.
Yes, and talk about your company and its goal to advance female leadership and secure a more equitable future.
Yes.
What is the work that you're doing, and why is now the time?
Yes, well, thank you. And that kind of mission statement that you see there on our site is more than just words on the page, right? It's really something that we're seeking to live into, and with our clients seeking to push others to live into. And we are starting with this belief that the world will be a better place when more women lead. There's tons of studies and research, and we have access to a lot of these data points on our website. But when women lead, good things happen. Innovation follows, inclusion follows, safe places to work follow, business growth follows. So quantitatively and qualitatively, when women are in senior leadership positions, good things happen. And ultimately, it's a more equitable place for all, women and men included. So with that premise, with that belief, what role can we play as a small but mighty agency, navigating and trying to work both one-on-one with women leaders and with groups of women leaders towards that mission? So the role that we play in advancing and closing the gender gap that exists in leadership is really equipping women leaders with very strong, intentional leadership brands. A leadership brand is, bringing fully who you are in terms of your strengths, talents, abilities, your purpose, your mission, your vision into what you do, your words, your decisions, your actions, and really being very clear about that. So we want to equip these women to be clear on who they are, clear on how they express themselves to the world, and connect the dots of the impact that they're seeking, and really give them that confidence to go after that thing that they want to see change in the world, right? And it could be within their team or organization, within their industry, within society. And we're playing a humble role on their journeys, but we're really trying to equip them, be that shot in the arm, be that dose of confidence and clarity that they need through that strong brand to make a difference in their profession and in their careers.
Where do you think most women are getting tripped up in this process, and why aren't women using their voices?
Yeah, great question. And, there's a lot of, we've heard the metaphors of the glass ceiling or the broken rungs, or there's a lot of external factors that are barriers to women in terms of advancing in leadership. There's, societal, and there's bias, all these things that are out there, these pressures, right? I would say the largest barrier, however, is the one that's internal to women. And this is something, and we've talked a bit about, and I have personally lived through, and there's different labels for it and names for it. Imposter syndrome gets thrown around, but I think about the host of internal barriers that exist in our mind about, who we are, what is our potential, what we can ask for, what we can demand, our value, our role in the world. And it's that the inner voice that tells us when we can't, or we shouldn't, or when our confidence gets kind of shaken a bit, right? Those internal barriers, I think that is most significantly holding us back. And I think the work that we do, we're not, I studied psychology in college, but I'm not a psychotherapist, but a lot of it is rooted in psychology, in mindset, and working through those internal barriers, and then thinking about, okay, externally, what are the barriers outside of myself that I can credibly go after breaking down. And it could be, I'm setting out to be the first female, GM of an MLB team, right? That's a societal barrier that has existed, that I want to set a goal for myself to break through. So we think about, you got to get through those internal barriers first before you cast out there and set out for that external barrier that you want to break. So it's all a lot of the really heavily lean on the metaphor of breaking through barriers, but it really starts with those internal barriers, breaking those down.
Yeah. So would you say that's the first step? And how do you get into that work to start to make progress, breaking down those internal barriers so that we could use our impactful, powerful voices to impact the business community, our families, and the world?
Yes. Great question. I think so. Yes, it does start with a lot of internal work, and in our process, we call it, from generally speaking, our discovery process, right? Where we get a lot of insights from the client, and also insights from those who are their champions in their life, who know them best as a leader. And this could be a mix of personal, professional, mentors, former colleagues, et cetera. But we really immerse ourselves in the client and encourage them to immerse in their selves. So the journey of discovery absolutely begins with self-awareness, and we encourage, through guided self-reflection exercises, folks to get really clear on internally, things like strengths, talents, abilities, but deeper than that, purpose, mission, vision, motivations, beliefs. These are we're unpacking this idea of their individual why. We talk about the great Simon Sinek's Start With Why, right? But we really want to get them clear on who they are, and knowing themselves, and being unafraid and unabashed about talking and being clear about what makes them special, unique, talented, gifted in the world, and putting a light on that for them, so that the whole process starts with, putting a lens of resiliency and positive psychology and self-awareness. And we're guiding this. So it's not, like a magic wand, like go do this, but we have to guide folks through this, but it really starts with them getting clear on knowing who they are.
Well, I love the discovery process, how it includes internal reflection, but also external.
Yes.
What are the people in your circle saying about you? And
yes.
There's a lot of different ways to address who those people are, whether it's a mentor or a colleague, or someone who's working in, underneath you, or your boss, or, your buddy. There's a lot of ways we could define those people. How important is it that women define their circle and make sure that the voices that are, the loudest in their ears are ones that are supportive and encouraging of their journey?
Yep. I love it. So I talked a little about that inner voice that creates these barriers for us. These are outside voices that allow us and encourage us to kind of break down those internal barriers a little bit. And it's a trusted circle. We call these folks your key stakeholders. They're invested in you. They're along with you on this journey. We also sometimes refer to them as your champion. So these are people who are your cheerleaders, who do support you, who, quote unquote, have your back in life. And I think it's so important to let those outside voices, those trusted outside voices, let them in, so to speak, and let them help build you up. And it's not artificially manufacturing things. It's they see you for who you really are, and sometimes in ways that we can't see our own selves. And where we might be reluctant to self-promote or put a light on something about ourselves, these folks want to put that spotlight on those things because they know that's what makes us unique as leaders. They know that's what is required to make a difference in the world. And we think about these champions or these stakeholders as having the really unique ability to help cast a vision for you. So get you out of the moment of the day-to-day and whatever your present tense is, and kind of cast you positively into the future and into your greatest potential as a leader. And these are not things we can find on the internet about you. These are maybe not things we learn from our discovery interview with you, but these folks tell us things that are, they open the aperture, they open the possibilities, and they are very encouraging and very positive. And they're not just puffery or nice things. They're rooted in good intent and really kind of being with shoulder to shoulder with that person on their life's journey. So those interviews are probably the most valuable part of our discovery process, in addition to the homework that we do, obviously, in the insights gathering, but we learn a lot from those folks. And the champion aspect of them, they stay with these folks through our project work and for the long haul with folks. So they're in a way serving as an accountability partner for these folks as they continue their journey after their work concludes with us.
Yeah. And how does somebody get to work with you? How do we?
Yeah. Well, just ask. You'll get what you want. Just ask. We are currently, like, we're in high growth mode right now. We have a team in place that can work around 10 to 15 clients a month through this work that we call a brand unlock. That's our 4-week deep dive into your leadership brand strategy, your leadership brand content, and just getting that roadmap for you and that playbook to go launch, right? So the brand unlock is something where we typically start with a quick exploratory call to see if there's a fit, if what we provide, our philosophies about leadership development are fit for you. And then we get to go deep into that discovery, right? We start the process, and our clock starts with that first discovery session. And within 4 weeks, we have a very efficient and effective process in place. It's still very high touch, obviously very customized, but we will work with you through a series of 3 meetings over those 4 weeks to deliver your full brand strategy and your brand story at the end, and equip you to kind of go on to the next mountain or the next task ahead of you.
What impact has this made for the women who have gone through this process? Can you give us an example of an impact or a success that has occurred as a result of the brand unlock?
Sure. Yeah, I think on our website we've developed what we call our women's leaders page, like your leaderboard, and we're really looking at this as a community of highly networked, very different, very diverse, but very like-minded also in one way in terms of impact that they're seeking. So I could pick any one of those women to share a story of, but I think I like to talk about some of our founders that are in the mix. So these are women who go through the brand unlock experience with us, not really sure of what their next step is, what their next move is. We always kind of talk about the first mountain and the second mountain. They've climbed that first mountain. They've had a great career. They're maybe a senior executive, and they're now at an inflection point. They're looking to say, okay, what's next? And one of these folks, Corrine Million, I'll give her a shout out. So I think we also know her from our past lives, but originally connected to Corrine through Pro Sports Assembly and her role there as a director and a content lead. Long story short, kind of through our branding work with Corrine, we helped her get clarity, and I'll say some courage, which is a big word. And I don't throw that around lightly, but courage to take the leap and start her own business. So she's launched her work, WRK, letsdowork.com, check them out, but it's all about increasing diversity, equity, inclusion in the hiring and retaining of talent in sports and entertainment. So she took her great passion, her great skill set, her experience, and she's translated this through the brand unlock into this very tangible thing, her business, that's going to change the industry. And she's still, she's at the heart of it. Corrine is this amazing natural leader, but getting her willing to kind of put her story out there, learning from her stakeholders about what makes her so special, so unique, what her talents are that maybe she wasn't sharing, her aspirations, her vision for herself, and giving her the toolkit and that playbook and and the gumption, I'll say, to go off and start what she's doing. And it's, it's always a roller coaster ride as an entrepreneur. I know this, but to see her take that leap and do that and grow her business and continue to leverage that amazing network that she worked very, very hard to build up is one of, our favorite stories to share. But she's an amazing continued collaborator with us, and we're so proud of her.
Yeah. And this is how small the world is. I've interviewed her on the Leadership is Female podcast.
Well, that's going to be my next listen tomorrow. She's everywhere. I can't, she's wild. She's out there. That's great.
She's using her voice, which is so important.
Absolutely. That makes me very happy. I will listen today.
Yeah. And just another shout out for her. She is, charming, I think is probably like the best word to describe. She can find something in common with anyone she talks to. And for her to launch a business inside a space that connects people with opportunity is where the magic is going to happen. And for her to work on creating more equitable and diverse workplaces, gives me goosebumps just thinking.
I mean, and that's, you think about, like, we have this Venn diagram that we share, like, what is a breakthrough? It's we think about someone like Corinne, where she can bring fully who she is as a leader, her talents, her strengths, her experience, her, all these, her network, her purpose, her mission, her vision, really deep understanding of that, and bring that fully into her day to day. She's a Jane of many trades, right? She has her winning edge and pro sports assembly and all these initiatives, right? There's a common thread through all of them, but to now bring this to life through the business of work, and this specific facet of, there's a gap in the market that she saw. That's really, that's a great breakthrough for her, right? But also for society. This is something that an initiative that's going to help, change the game for a lot of people. And that's, that to me is like our best, one of, we don't talk about case studies, but like, I look at her as a great example of that.
Yeah. And this isn't just for women who are launching into an entrepreneurial journey.
Yes.
There is real magic to finding your voice within your current employment. If you've been promoted into a big role and you need to define what that voice looks like, how do you advocate for your company? How do you grow within that role? Breakthrough Brands is also for you in defining what that next step in leadership looks like.
Absolutely. And just on that note too, one of the challenges is always about, investing in yourself. And I think when we talk about women leading at large organizations, this type of work is part of your professional development, part of your leadership development. And we have played an interesting role at some large organizations as a critical puzzle piece in this idea of how do I professionally develop women, emerging women leaders or established women leaders to grow in their impact within the organization, and also to retain these women, right? This is a big challenge that we're seeing, especially as of late. But the idea of asking for this as an investment as part of your development journey has been something that, again, we equip folks with the confidence to go ask for this as a resource in a tool in their toolkit, if you will. But we absolutely see large companies see this as a value, because the stronger that their women leaders are, the clearer their communication, the more effective their messaging is. It connects the dots very quickly to business results and retaining these women and them attracting and recruiting amazing talent. And it has a very positive halo effect. So it's a growth driver for organizations, not just for the individual. I think that's an important point.
Yeah, absolutely. And retention is something that we're talking about today more than ever. And investing in the leaders within your company is a really important way to keep them on your team and keep them making an impact. So,
and they're your ambassador out in the world, right? If you're, used to be, when I worked at Wrigley, I was an employee of Wrigley. I got sort of consumed by the parent brand. And I was just, this feeling like a representative of the company. The equation is almost flipped now, where you are, you're the ambassador, your brand is out in the forefront as a leader, and you're impacted, and your connection is haloing back to the corporation almost. So you're out there individually, but you're also an ambassador for that organization or school or corporation, whatever it is that you're working with, and that you can serve, increase your own presence as a leader, but also that it has a very positive effect back onto the organization. And a lot of these companies, from a reputation perspective or getting their awareness out, they are looking at these women and men, but their leaders as being the forefront of driving awareness for the company.
Yeah, absolutely. You're so spot on with that definition and its importance, and the way that business has evolved. And we're talking about the things that we're doing and having that halo effect on the company with every post on LinkedIn, with the way that we're showing up to our kids' soccer games in the community. I mean, where we're investing any of our extra resources for donations to not-for-profits, like the whole thing is that backwards reflection. So think about that as a company when you're really wanting your people to have that defined voice, feel empowered, and represent the company in the brightest light possible. It's such an important exercise.
Yeah, you got it. Exactly.
So I want to talk about you a little bit as an entrepreneur and ask you, you started this business in 2019. It's so important. I think we could talk for hours about how valuable what you provide is for women. But for you, how much has sheer willpower played into your success to launch this company and keep it going and now be in that major growth mode?
Yeah, sheer willpower. I love it. I'm like, oh, I like that idea. I mean, maybe I have that. I think about that question makes my mind go to this idea of like will and skill, right? So you can have a lot of will to do something, but no skill, and that's problematic, or a lot of skill on something, but not a lot of will, and that's problematic. But the sweet spot is when you have skill and you have a high skill and high will. And I think I look back, 2019, when I started the company, as I mentioned, I'd spent almost 20 years in the working world, so to speak, climbing the corporate ladder, learning, growing, getting my MBA, ups and downs, twists, turns, all those things. I was gaining experience. I was gaining skills. I could not have started BREAKTHRU Brands 10 years ago, 15 years ago, definitely not 20 years ago, because I did not have the skills. So I look at, the kind of the convergence of an increase of skills with, I do have a strong inner will to succeed, to help others, to do good, right? To buy in for others. And the willpower, comes into play definitely when things get tough, and where things are uncertain especially at the outset of a new business. So I felt confident kind of starting something because, okay, I have the skill set in branding, the skill set in marketing. I'm not afraid to talk to people. I've sold things. I've been in front of audiences, putting myself out there, so to speak. I had a number of skill sets that I knew I could leverage. And when things get uncertain or tough, that's when that willpower and just sheer determination. And I think the thing that keeps us going and keeps me going, it keeps our team going, is the guiding light, the North Star, if you will, of the mission of the company. And if that's strong and true, and you believe in it, and you're willing to kind of endure the bumps in the road and the hurdles and the adversity, that's what keeps us going. And that's what kind of keeps the fire of the willpower burning, so to speak. So that I was lucky, I think, to identify that purpose and mission early on, and be very intentional about why we exist as a business and what we're trying to do and who we serve. So that when things got tough or uncertain, or, hey, maybe this month wasn't as good as we anticipated it to be, or we thought we had this deal that didn't come through, you know what, it's going to be okay, because we just got to keep reaching out to people, keep spreading the word, keep doing the work. So I think with strong purpose and mission, willpower, kind of that flame can stay alive. And when you don't have that, it's that flame can kind of get blown out pretty easily.
Is there a big hurdle that you've had to overcome, and what tools did you use to get over that hurdle and then propel yourself forward afterwards?
Yeah, I think, was not necessarily a hurdle per se, but big like life change or a shift of like, of kind of the path that you're on. So my wife and I, back in 2017, we took another leap of faith. We moved from Chicago out to New Hampshire for a job opportunity for her, and a combination of appetite for adventure and something new, just, moving the kids to a new, lovely nature laden place, right? This beautiful spot of New Hampshire. So we took this bit of a risk, moving to New Hampshire, new job, new baby, all these things, right? Stacking of life events. We're really good at that. And that it was in that midst of kind of when we settled into New Hampshire, that's when this business idea sort of percolated for me. I had some time, I had some space. I had stepped off the conveyor belt of the corporate roles that I was on, and I got the gumption to start the business. When we decided to move back to Chicago, that's another story for another podcast. We'll save that one. I had to almost re-network myself back in Chicago. I had worked in the New England area for those couple of years to get clients and get opportunities going and sort of working that network, so to speak. And I'd gone to college out there, so I had some good starting points. But moving back to Chicago was almost like completely re-networking ourselves and reacclimating and reestablishing, almost relaunching this business here with the network we have here. And, we're a remote business and we work coast to coast, but there's something about sort of your home territory, your home network, and making sure that you're leveraging that and serving that and working with that. So that was the moving, anytime a family transitions moves, it's always a little bit unsettling. Moving a business location, like, moving the LLC, re-networking, all those things. And you just have to be, again, intentional and kind of get through those changes and let things kind of settle, and then have a plan to rebuild sometimes and reinvent some things. And I look back and that was kind of a tumultuous 4-year span, and you sprinkle COVID in there too. You're like, what is happening? So we've all kind of gone through that together, but it's now great to be back home. Great to, reconnect with friends and family, and, my business school network here, all those things are kind of coming back together. So it gets better.
Yeah. Well, and what I really heard you say in overcoming that hurdle, your network, leaning on your network, reinvesting in your network, restarting your network, and, having the courage to do so. Networking can be challenging, and you have to really put yourself out there to make it happen. And so finding the courage to do so really got you to that place where you wanted to be again, so that you could take off.
Yeah, exactly. I think with all our networks, right, it's knowing, kind of like mapping your network, but like people genuinely want to help each other. I believe that. So knowing when to say, hey, can you help me out with something? Or I have this idea, or do you know someone? And we are, always trying to promote and grow our business, and we have to do that with and through other people. And I had to kind of get over myself, I'll say, about being, reaching out and asking and, having a meeting, or, asking for those connections, and, always providing some value to folks, but not being afraid to ask for help.
Yeah, I love that. Such a great reminder. And okay, we've talked so much about Chicago. So let's share the city with our listeners. If you don't live there, gosh, I could have like 100 questions of just things I wanted you to highlight, starting with pizza, favorite bar. What do you and the kids do on the weekend? And then the ever important question of how do you make space for your business and motherhood?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll start with the easy one, because if I don't answer the question about pizza in this way, I'll be kicked out of my family. So my parents and my brother are business owners. They're entrepreneurs in the pizza business here in Chicago. So if you're ever in LaGrange, Illinois, which is a western suburb, Aurelio's Pizza is Aurelios, Aurelio's. It is I would call it a South Side pizza chain that has emerged over the last 50, 60 years. But my parents and my brother are running the LaGrange location, and also down in Naples, Florida, if you're ever down there. So Aurelio's Pizza, #1. I'm not just saying that, but I have to, but delicious, kind of a sweet sauce and a cheese that gets, caramelized when you cook it. And it's actually a thin crust, which is shocking to most people. When they think about Chicago, you think deep dish, but this is a really delicious, very unique thin crust pizza, and keep it in the family. I have to do that. So
I love that. Yum. My mouth is watering.
Okay. So then the kid activities, I'm hungry. So I'm thinking about pizza. What was the next question?
So what do you guys do on the weekends?
Okay. So weekends, and so definitely is driven by the season. So we're in the dead center of winter right now, which with our kids, we're playing basketball. So Lindsay and I, my wife Lindsay, we each coach one of our daughters in the Oak Park Park District Basketball League. So our weekends are basketball filled. We're not doing that. We like to go out to eat, take the kids out downtown to some of our favorite old restaurants. We like to go to museums. We love Science Industry Museum, the aquarium. I think we're going this weekend, but we try to get the kids to access this great city that's, you know, about 5 miles from where we live, and just kind of tap them into to all that offers.
I'm having like the flashback of all of the great Chicago
Yeah,
memories as you're
so much to
talking.
do. And if we can squeeze in a Bulls game or a Chicago Sky game, or I'm always like, I never say no to a Cubs game. Like, I don't think I've ever said no to that. So I'm, depending on who's playing what sport, I'll try to get to some sporting events. So
Love it. And then the question that we still are answering is the making space for your business and all of your personal goals alongside motherhood. Do you have any, what are your tips to share?
Yeah, I think, I mean, we're experimenting with this one, so I'm not sure if it's a validated tip yet, but we are very like open with our kids about our work and who we work with. And we'll talk about, you know, it's hard to turn off the switch of like the work day into dinner time. And, you know, we work from home, and we travel a bit, but we're mostly, you know, working from our home offices. So the boundaries get blurred a little bit. So we talk about work a lot. We get to work with so many amazing clients, and it's hard not to discuss them and their stories. And rather than sort of keeping that separate from the kids, they're part of those conversations, and they have opinions, they have perspectives, and they have questions. And I think involving them in the process and explaining to them, you know, not just sort of like airbrushing like what you do for work for them, but being real with the kids about like, you know, what do you actually do and how do you do it and who do you work with and why are you doing the work that you're doing. And I think they've been definitely like front row seat, you know, in watching this business from the early stages, and they know our clients, right? They know these women, a lot of them, or they've seen them, or they'll see them on our website and kind of bringing it to life. So making like, there's not always this like hard line between work and family and my life and their life. Like, there's a lot of intermixing and kind of transparency to what we're doing with our kids. And I like them being involved in our work and knowing what we do. And, you know, there's a filter on it because they're kids, right? We're not going to, you know, go into the gory details, but I think it's part treating them, you know, as part of our team, right? These kids are part of this journey. And I think we also make an intentional effort to, the mealtime is an important part to kind of connect and kind of share those stories. So we want to hear about their stories from the day. We'll share our stories from the day, and we'll kind of, you know, share those moments together. And that's that dinner time, that mealtime is like really important. It's kind of hectic sometimes. We try to protect that time. And then just, I think for us, like me personally, kind of maintaining, you know, this whole thing of like, we're all of our work is in service of others. We've got these kids, we've got this whole thing, like other focus, but making sure that we carve out time to, you know, like the self-care and self-awareness, and, you know, for whether it is going for walks or meditating or reading, just having some alone time. I'll say for me personally, that helps me recharge, because so much of it is externally focused a lot. So I try to, you know, protect the time with family over meals, openly share with them what we're doing, and then make sure I still have time in the day to do something that is, you know, more self-reflective and more just, you know, calming, I'll say, because it can be a hectic pace.
You're not the first successful woman to include their kids on the journey. Yeah. And I think that that's an interesting opportunity we have working as an entrepreneur or in the sports industry, is including your kids
bring them to a game, bring them to a meet. Yeah, exactly. They're walking around the background sometimes. Like, you can't be in the Zoom, but not that so far. I'm like, what do you have advice? No, but it's different than I think when we grew up. I kind of didn't know really what my parents did for work. I kind of knew, but it wasn't really discussed. It was just like, oh, they go to work. Like, that's what they did.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I love it. So, all right, final 4 questions.
Okay. Oh yeah, these are good ones.
Yeah. The first one, what's your best piece of advice for women to apply today to level up tomorrow?
Okay. Do not be afraid to ask for what you want.
And where are you traveling to next?
Next trip will be for the Final Four for women's basketball. We're going to go to Dallas, and we will be half work, half fun. And I'm very excited to enjoy that time with a lot of friends.
And what is your pump up song?
This is a hard one. So I you know, for however many years I played basketball, 20 years, I was usually the one responsible for like what was the mixtape, then became the mix CD, then became like the USB drive, and now it's like it's all in the cloud. So I was always the one sort of galvanizing, organizing the pump up mix. So I have like lots of songs, but I think if I go back into my brain, deep into my brain memory, I would have to weirdly say Van Halen, Jump, like that beginning of it's totally 80s, and I'm dating myself with that. But like if I go back to like that song, if I hear it, like I will want to jump up and like just run. Like that's the song. But
that is everything a
songs,
pump-up
but I
song
go
should
back to the
be.
classic 80s.
Perfect. And then finally, what is your favorite quote?
My favorite quote, it's the overused, but it's because it's so good. Just from Gandhi, be the change you want to see in the world. I think we all have a responsibility to do something to make the world better, and one person can absolutely make a difference. And we cannot do it alone. We have to do it with and through other people. But if you see a change that you want to see in the world, to do something in your life to work towards it is so important.
Well, I think you wrapped that up beautifully. That quote just really embodies the work that you are doing each and every day, leading her forward, helping her find her voice, and using that to make the world a better place. So it's been such a pleasure interviewing today on the podcast. And
you're a pro. You're so good. You're like very excellent. Everything you've curated with this is awesome. I'm really grateful to be a part of this, and you're doing excellent work.
Oh, thank you so much. And we will link up all the links in the show notes. So you know exactly where to find Breakthrough Brands, and follow Laura and engage
Set up a call. Let's chat.
With their company. All right. Well, thank you so much.
All right, Emily. Thank you.